Geoff, welcome to the Way Champions podcast. Jerry and I are honored to have you on as these three worlds that have connected with each other separately collide here this week.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really great to be here and to see you both.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, Jerry, you were telling me a little bit about how you and Geoff first connected, so maybe you can jump into that or Geoff, maybe what's your recollection of this moment?
Wow. Well, I'd really loved his work, and I was doing some work spoke at the Iowa High School Coaches Clinic, and I think we got connected there through a mutual friend, and he said, "Hey, well, I know this guy," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know Jerry Lynch," and I was able to have him do a bridge text and connect us, and the rest, as they say, is history. Jerry and I met, talked for a while, and then actually had some coffee and hung out when I was living out in Colorado, and just loved picking his brain. And I love the synergy between the Buddhist and the mindset and meditation, and how, body, spirit, um, and competition come together. So yeah, just fortuitous, very lucky, very fortunate. And it's been too long, Jerry. So it's so good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I feel the same way. And when John said Jeff is going to be on our podcast, I said, "How did you arrange that one? That guy's a busy man and he's all over the place and going from here to there." My recollection was similar. We were walking down the Boulder Pearl Street Mall, as I recall,
Yep, yep,
and it was a beautiful sunny early fall, I think. And
yep,
and you had just left Ohio State, I
yep.
believe. And you were fortunate enough to be let go, I think.
I say this all the time, and I said it to actually a friend of mine who's going through some hard times right now. The best line I've ever heard, the most optimistic line I've ever heard given my situation was, "The fact that you got let go is a blessing. What a gift." And I was like, looked at you like, what?
Did
You
I say
said,
that? Did I say that to you?
you said that to me, and you said, now you have the opportunity, you can connect in a real deep, meaningful way
Yeah,
with a whole nother group of human beings
yeah,
that you hadn't, because that was the first time I was ever fired. And
yeah,
you just said, now you can connect with a whole nother group of humans, um, in a real authentic way through this experience. And I was like, that completely changed my mind, to be completely honest with you. And I use it all the time because what an optimistic, cool way. And it's been absolutely 100% true.
yeah.
To be
And
able
and
to speak authentically.
some of those human beings that you connected to, I remember you talking very fondly of your children. And I'm bringing this up because our listeners, there are listeners out there who have kids, and I have kids. John has kids, and if you don't have kids, that's okay. This is not a show to kind of convince you that you should have kids, but they're human beings in our life, and we get caught into the coaching thing as you did with Ohio State.
Yeah.
They were giving you a gift because I remember the first thing you said, Jerry, yeah, I really need to connect with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to go camping or fishing and I'm going to
Yep.
do this with my kids. And I thought, there it is. End of story.
Yep.
Uh, and the beginning of a story, which is what we want to talk about today. But yeah, so thanks for remembering that.
Yeah.
If I'm in that situation anytime, I'm going to need you to call me and tell me.
I just used that line. I just spoke about you, if your ears were burning,
Yeah,
about 3 days ago, and that was the message to my friend.
yeah,
You know
wonderful.
what's amazing is, I mean, we talked the word that we would use, Geoff, is the rule of one, right? One person, one comment, one time. We've written chapters about in our books and stuff like that, and how powerful that is, and how, I mean, Jerry obviously recollects the walk with you in the conversation. I don't know if he recollects that exact line, except that he kind of said it again, but like this is our power as a coach, right? We
Right.
we say something that has stuck with you through good times and bad, up and down, something you've shared, and yet, oftentimes we say that as a coach or as a leader, and we just move on and we don't remember it, but it becomes a transformational moment for a person. That's the gift we're given as a coach and also the responsibility, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, and so often coaches don't hear, they just, people just assume. And I always tell in the work I'm doing, don't ever assume, be clear, make sure people know exactly how you feel. So often coaches, we just have to guess that we're doing okay. But when a player, a former player, and I had this happen about a month ago, comes up and she literally said, I was getting out of volleyball, I was in a really dark place. And you saved my, I mean, I get emotional. Yeah, I
Mm,
mean, you saved my life. My grandma and grandpa and my family talk about you every week at the dinner table, and she's coaching now. She's a high school coach. She's doing awesome. She went overseas. And those things are so life-giving. So yeah, I mean, Jerry, that moment for me was transformational. So I wanted to make sure you knew that.
Appreciate it very much, and it made a difference in my life as well.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, this is amazing. Like I just the synchronicity of the universe bringing this together and our conversation. Because Jeff, when you and I spoke on the phone 6 weeks ago or a month ago, whenever that was, and we were connected through John Kessel through
Yeah.
USA Volleyball, and Jerry and I had just done our leadership retreat at John's beautiful property in
Yeah.
Colorado, and and so yeah, the universe connected us, and you and I had this great conversation, and we were just talking about as a coach, especially at your level, right? Where Ohio State, of course, the school of national champions, where they're just trying to win everything, and Ohio University are incredibly successful in two stints there. Like, we get measured publicly in wins and losses, and yet you can win a lot and not have that kid say you saved my life. You can be totally fear-based and transactional, and if you can't cut it, I'm going to find someone else that will. Um, and yet, like you can't, we don't get our bonuses and our salaries and our promotions for that kid who 10 years later writes you and says you saved my life. And it's the hardest thing I think about college coaching these days is the best coaches know that you have to connect, and yet they're never really evaluated on that.
100%. This is one of the other things with when Jerry and I spoke of, because I was in, it was hard. I had to do some soul searching for the first time in my life. I was told we're going to move on. It's not you, it's me, and that was hard. And I had to go through a grieving process. And I really, the irony of that situation when I was at Ohio State was for years, longer than I'd like to speak of, I was coaching from a place of fear and not love. That's how I was able to, I try not to be dichotomous, but to me, that's such a powerful crossroads where, okay, am I
Yeah.
acting out of fear or love? And it doesn't have to be, I love you. It can be, I need to have this hard conversation because I love you. Um, or I'm not going to have this conversation because I'm fearful of what might happen. And I think, especially now, I just wrote about this actually 2 days ago, that fear versus love to me is an incredibly powerful um, way of thinking about things. And when I was at Ohio State, I was definitely coaching from fear. How do I save my job? How do I placate this situation? How do and I think that's a tough place to be as a coach. And how do you navigate that as a coach? When do you stick your neck out? When do you have those conversations? And I think that's getting harder and harder and harder, especially in the age of NIL and social media and so many other things. But for me, I had to really reconcile that as a human, as a coach of, what I'm going to coach from a place of love. I'm going to coach from a place of authenticity. And the irony a little bit of the Ohio State situation was I was really starting to figure it out right when I got let go. And I think that was, Jerry mentioned that too, is like that was a place that wasn't for you. Um, and as hard as it was to hear that and believe in that at the time, it was true as well. And that was, but it was on me. I had to take ownership for all of it, right? I'm the one who allowed this to happen and this fear. So I do think what you're saying is, um, is very, very true and relevant and more relevant every single day with how do we as leaders, how do we as coaches at all levels really anchor in with love and authenticity and not fear.
Hmm.
Be
Yeah.
transformational and not transactional is another way. But man, that fear versus
You
love thing is very powerful for me.
you've just summed up the state of the world. Uh,
Very true.
no, you have. From 30,000 feet looking down, you can see the little pockets of fear and you can see the
Mhm.
pockets of love. And let's be clear about that love thing. And I know you were going there with it. I just want to make sure that our listeners understand, and they've heard this before from John and I, but it's not kumbaya and holding your hands around a fire. And that's lovely. And gosh, I've had fun with that one too. But it's the kind of love where you're going to demand from your athletes what you know they need to be a better version of themselves. And because you love them, you're going to give them that opportunity. That's one level. But the other level is everyone wants to feel, and I always say this is my favorite line, raise your hand if you don't want to feel relevant, if you don't want to feel important, valued, empowered, and respected. I didn't see anybody's hand go up. And the reason is because we all crave that. And what is the that? The that of be feeling important is love. And as a coach, that's our responsibility to create a safe environment where people feel that way. And I think, again, getting back to our meeting, that meeting seemed to have much more impact on this conversation than I imagined. But in that meeting, between you and I, it was like kind of trying to diffuse the fear that you were having. And I was very aware and sensitive to that fear. And it's like I've been there before. I've been fired from jobs. I mean, I haven't had a job in 50 years and I don't want one. But I love my work, but I don't want a job. And that fear, by saying that to you, it sort of relieved the fear and it puts you in your heart in a place of love. And that's what coaching is all about. And that's what I want to that's how I want to be with everyone in my life. My kids, with John, with my cohort, with you. And we just function at such higher level, don't we?
Yeah, that's so well said. And I think there's also moments, right? You and I we cross paths at a moment, where there was some rawness to it, right? And I think as coaches, understanding those moments is the art, right?
Mm, mm,
The leader of, okay, what's going on beneath the surface? There's always a pain beneath that pain and what's really going on and being in tune with that. So I do think we have teachable moments, but they're more powerful than teachable. They're transformational moments. And I think the best coaches and best leaders and best humans are able to take a step back and recognize those. And sometimes you just listen. Sometimes you say a nugget that sticks with people forever. Um, and, I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and more so every single day. There's a lot of fear I think there's going to be more and more and more as we move into this leadership, as AI and other things come into play. Fear's not getting less. And so I think for us, what an opportunity for us in this profession, to lead and to guide and to be there for people.
Well, as the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And I think
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
is, as a coach, you cross paths with Jerry. I would say I cross paths with Jerry, right? At a time when I was ready to do something different and needed someone to be a guide, but also like, oh wait, there's that whole thing out there. And
right.
this is us as a coach as well, is we can say the same thing every day and one day they listen, right? One day it all clicks, right? Or one day, our assistant coach says the same thing that we've said 20 times and it clicks for the kid because they're ready in that moment from that voice, from that delivery. And so that's why I think great coaches as well surround themselves with these other amazing assistants and staff. As Ron Adams told us, they cement the cracks is what the good assistants do.
Right.
Because, well, like I don't want to take all the credit. I just want to get us, you and us from here to there. And I don't care who gets you there. Let's just get there, right? And if I'm not the one who we're connecting, instead of going, there's something wrong with that kid, just say, hey, there's someone else try. Now, if five of us try, yeah, maybe there's something on that kid that they have to take responsibility for.
Right, right. And I have my background, I was in the Peace Corps and I have my master's in social work. And so for me, one of the things I've never apologized for is I coached 23 years in Division One. I had one transfer in 23 years, one kid transfer, and that includes 13 years at Ohio State. Um, and I think for me, part of that is not giving up on people. I mean, some of my favorite stories are with kids that really, I think a lot of people would have let them go, and maybe I should have even at times. Um, but I didn't. And those are some of the people who said, look, you were there, you served, thank you for sticking with me. And I think that's the part I really love most about coaching is you're going to have opportunities with, family members are going to pass away. They're going to have doubts, they're going to have dark moments and, coaching and leading. And, I've been fortunate enough to do some work with CEOs and organizations. So coaching is connecting with humans is across all arenas, right? The amount of CEOs I found that are really struggling in the same way our players are has been really, really eye-opening for me. So, and it works. The same thing as listening. It's being there. It's guiding, all those sort of things. So yeah, that component of what we do is why we do it, right?
I mean, I think that statistics, one transfer in 23 years is one of the most impressive statistics I've ever heard in Division One sports. I mean, talk about things that we should be measuring coaches on, right? That we're bringing in the right players and no one's leaving. Like
Right.
and again, I mean, you had tons of NCAA appearances and whatever. It's not like you were going 5 and 25 every year and no one was leaving. And so I think that's incredible because again, sometimes people leave. Sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes they want to move back home to be closer to family, and they still had a wonderful experience here. But
Right.
it's gotten harder, isn't it? I mean, like how did you see it shift in your time? I mean, you just stepped down, at Ohio University in May, but it's just got it, it's gotten the athlete school relationship's gotten more transactional as well. What's in it for me? Never mind, I'm going to leave. And the ease of the portal to just jump from school to school to school has made it really, really tough to keep those kids around.
Yeah, and I don't know how we could talk about this all day. I think it's fluid. I think right now it's that statistic I gave you, and I appreciate your comments on it. It's now it might be seen as not hustling enough. Like what's going on? Like, why aren't you hustling? Like, you got to work the portal, buddy. And so for me, um, we moved back to Minnesota for family and for very personal reasons in that sense. The state of what's going on out there right now, it's going to be interesting to see. And for me, I love my next chapter is working with coaches and helping them navigate this and working with clubs and programs and both within athletics and outside of athletics. But yeah, it's a new world. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the transactionality is in the Big Ten. It was you saw it. We had conversations in the room with head coaches, and we talked a lot about. We actually called each other out at times, like what hey, we need to be aware of the power and the influence we have on where things go. Um, Now it's such a global thing, I'm not sure 20 volleyball coaches could have made a difference. That said, it is very transactional. I think it's going to be interesting to see how transformational coaches handle the transactionality. You want to build trust. Like I always loved going and finding that diamond in the rough, the kid that no one else recruited, and we train and we build them up. Well, now those kids are getting offered real money to leave in volleyball, and six figures is not crazy in volleyball. And so, yeah, it's an interesting time, and I'm hoping that the three of us and many other people can help navigate this and bring some sanity to it to keep it because the best thing about coaching is those moments. I still think developing a culture, especially I think that culture becomes even more important now. Um, Belonging, purpose, honesty, authentic. I don't think people want to leave. It's a lot to leave a school and go to another school. I don't think they want to. Sometimes the money is just it's so much. It's really hard to blame when you're talking about life-changing money.
Yeah, you can't
But I
tell a kid
think
not to go for, in football, millions of dollars. Like,
right,
how do you
right.
say turn down $4 million? And,
Yeah.
it's impossible.
That said, I think, you know, there's a lot, 25, 50, 40. Will people will a volleyball player leave for that? I don't think so if they feel like they're in a good place and they feel like they're loved and they feel like they're connected. So I do think a lot of our sports, outside of football and probably men's basketball and maybe women's basketball, the the culture will keep players around, I think, more than we think. That's my hope. That culture actually in developing that connection and that heart equity, as I call it, within your program, will become even more powerful.
Yeah. I mean,
Heart
yeah.
equity. What is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, um, there's heart equity and there's resource equity. And for me, as we move forward, and I bring this up with my CEOs, and I brought it up to my AD when I left, is, you know, heart equity in many ways costs almost nothing. It's texting a coach when they know that their mother's in the hospital. It's walking down the hall after a tough loss and just sitting down and checking in and seeing how they're doing. It's walking down the hall or giving a phone call after a huge win. It's um, just being aware of one of their kids being sick. It's allowing them to integrate their family into the work, knowing that it's a lot on a coach. And so um, I argue with leaders that if you're not building heart equity, people are going to leave. Because I think as we move forward, whether it's a Fortune 500 company or a Division One or Division Three school or club, humans are going to gravitate towards a place that has heart equity. I don't think coaches are staying up at night because of their budgets. I don't think they're losing sleep because of NIL. For the most part, I think they're losing sleep because of uncertainty and fear that comes from a lack of heart equity from the leadership within that club or within that company or within that college. And it really does. It almost costs you nothing. It might cost you bringing me in to teach you how to do it, but the ROI on retention and the ROI on just lack of conflict and all that is just off the charts. And so, particularly as NIL and the transactionality of college athletics and high school athletics and club and all the way down, and certainly within CEOs with I believe in my heart that the companies that really anchor into relationships, belonging, community, purpose, I care about you, that I care about you-ness, which I just label as heart equity. I think those are going to be the companies that thrive, and those are going to be the universities that thrive, and those are going to be the teams that thrive.
So what do I have to do to get you to come into my school or my program? And once I get you there, what does it look like? How is it going to help me? And I'm speaking as if I'm an AD with hard equity.
Hmm.
God knows there's so many out there that are just transactional and there's just absolutely no heart in the business that they create. I mean, I've been with, 348 teams over a period of 40 years, and I've only met two athletic directors, and they were both from Division Three,
Yeah.
who really had what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
how do you get your voice? Because I'm listening to you and I'm saying it's easy for me to say this. I'm all in. I'm bought into you.
Yeah.
How do I get you in there? And when I get you in, what does that look like? Help us understand that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. First of all, just call me, email me, have a conversation. I love talking about these things, even if you don't end up bringing me in or hiring me. I love having this conversation. So the first answer is just call me. I have, and I'm sure we'll put that out there. I'll figure out a way to get that out to people through this. And then, we sit down and I have about a dozen, depends. I have seven really heartfelt questions, but I have up to 50 questions that we just we start talking about. They range from, um, you know, have you thought about quitting your job in the last year? What would your student athletes or your workers say about you? What's your dream? What does it look like 3 years from now, 1 year from now? What would that look like? And so we just start having really authentic conversations. And you and I have talked about this. I have no problem sharing and being vulnerable and being open and being honest. And when people hire me, I tell them right up front, like, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. That said, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna walk with you up this mountain, whatever that mountain is, and I'm gonna be there for you. And we're gonna navigate. Um, we're gonna whether it's hard equity or if you need to figure out how do you have a conversation between your younger generation, your generational leadership, right? If I'm working with a company, it's you have a 25-year-old, you have a 55-year-old. They're seeing the world a little bit differently. How do we create a bridge? And that's a little bit of our sweet spot, right? As someone who's worked with that age group forever. And there are differences, and if you're not aware of those, you're losing out on a golden opportunity, in my opinion. So we get in, we have really trusting, authentic conversations. I let them get to know me. We build trust, and then we roll up our sleeves and we start building that hard equity. We start building those communication lines of communication and how we're communicating, language and blind spots. And everyone's a little bit different. It's very personal. You know, some of there's a lot of similarities between, fear is usually at the heart of it. Fear,
Always.
fear is always the heart of it. And so we
It's either
start,
one or the other. Let's just put it out there. It's either
yeah,
fear or love. You're not coming
yeah,
from any other place.
absolutely. So we start there and then we just roll up our sleeves and we work together and we build something really special together. So, um, the other piece that I bring in is it's a volleyball term called in system, out of system. So in volleyball, you want to be in system. You want to be able to pass the ball to the setter and be able to run your offense. And there's a flow to it. And the teams that are in system more than out of system win almost every time. And so, but most of the games played out of system, and you got to figure out why, and you got to get back in system as soon as you can. So for me, with businesses, we talk about how do we get back in system quicker, what caused us to be out of system. And I do it not from supply chain or financial. I do it from a human people. Like where are the gaps? Is there territoriality? Is there conflict? Is there a lack of
Mm,
alignment with what the vision we proclaim and how we're behaving?
hmm
So all the there it's I love it, by the way. I love doing this. It was the thing I loved most about coaching was
hmm
the dynamics and getting a group of people that maybe there's so many different perspectives. How do you get everyone aligned and build that team as fast as you can, but as deeply as you can, so that you can perform at a high level while still building trust and making memories, and 10 years later, you're able to get back together and have some food and have some laughs and really be reflective on how each one transformed and changed each other's lives. So, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Oh,
it's about
absolutely.
conversations and sitting down and personalizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You answered the question. And I'm just wondering, to me, again, going back to that talk, it's bringing up so much. I remember feeling that from you then. And of course, Ohio State, there's no way they appreciated that or could understand the depth at which you were taking it or wanting to take it. But I knew you were onto something. I just didn't know how you were going to figure that out.
Right.
I don't have answers for individual people, but I knew somehow going back to your family, you started with your roots with your family, and then you got that support. And the listeners need to hear this too, because your journey of creating a business, a way to impact culture, uh, needs a lot of support.
Yeah.
So it starts with the family, and then there are people like John and I who will support you 100%, and others out there. So if people are wanting to do what I'm doing, I need support. I have
Absolutely.
John, and we have this other gentleman, Matt Booth, and we're still building. And maybe we're halfway there, maybe not, I don't know. But it requires the input and the support because the subject matter is still, I'm sorry to say that I have business.
Yeah.
And what I'm really sorry about is that I can't retire because if I retire, then I'm not getting what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That
Right.
the
I
quote
love it.
quote Burt Bacharach, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Uh, only because you're a little older than most listening to this. But that said, we need that support and we work together for something much bigger than ourselves and create this world of that contains, as you say so well, uh, hard equity. But the other thing I want to point out, and then I'll stop talking here, there are differences between a 25-year-old and a 55-year-old. There are differences, there's no question. I think we're too obsessed with trying to understand, oh, Generation Z and Generation X and all of this. But as John and I like to say in our work together, is there's one thing for certain. There's one thing that will never be different, that every 25-year-old and every 65 and 85-year-old will crave, and that is connection,
Mhm.
caring. They want to be empowered. A 25-year-old Generation P, whatever that is, wants to be empowered. They want to feel respected. Over time, if you have these keys, these nuggets, then everybody needs you. And it's nice to understand that, yeah, maybe this generation questions this or that. And those are good things to have, but never to forget that you don't have to worry. I'll go into any arena today, any age group. I don't care what it is. I'll go to a convalescent home where people are 80 years old and they have no work and I'll be able to relate to them and move them because we all, in our volatile, uncertain, complex, fearful world, what you're talking about is the key for everybody. And as long as we remember that language and have the courage to not be afraid of love, then we we make a difference.
Right. Well said. And I think it's one of the reasons I reached out, I reached out to John. It's the reason I reached out to you. I mean, really, Epic Journey Leadership began right around that time I met you. I'm like, okay, it was during COVID and I knew I wanted to impact people. So the business I'm running now and really leaning into really began during those times when you and I met. That 6 month period, that's where it had its fruition. But I've always wanted to meet John since you and I talked, and I was like, man, I want to be John. Like, I want to be your guy. And at the time, John was your guy. And I was like, I just never really got around to it. And then all of a sudden, I'm talking to John Kessel and he's bringing you guys up. And I'd been fortunate enough to be out to his ranch. And I'm like, hey, John, John, could you connect me with that guy? I'm really interested in getting to know him. So for me, the beauty of this is learning, right? And learning from, and bouncing ideas around. So I love your idea of support. You kind of need a board of supporters to help you navigate this because the reality is, right now I'm a business of one and um I'm learning as I go, and the more I really appreciate you two and being a part of this has been awesome. So yeah,
Well,
that was so well said, and I agree. Belonging, feeling purpose, feeling connected, that's across all generations and all people.
we had a coach on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Mark Gottfried, and I don't know if you and I spoke before or after Jerry and I talked to Mark, and he was the head coach for men's basketball at Alabama and NC State, and big schools, big conferences, but he was an assistant at UCLA under Jim Herrick, won a national championship, and he tells this great story of he turns to Jim and says, "What's the biggest difference between being an assistant and a head coach?" And Jim Herrick said, "Loneliness,
Mm. Mhm.
loneliness."
Mhm.
And this really fits into everything we're talking about. That so I feel so many college head coaches, especially high school head coaches, they're on an island. Who do I turn to for advice? Some athletic departments are amazing and the coaches are really interconnected and they go to their peers and the volleyball coach talks to the field hockey coach, talks to the soccer coach. In other places, it's just this silo. And I
Mhm.
go there and I know Jerry would go there and you're like, you have all these amazing resources in your building of people to talk to, but you don't because you're all in that little world of maybe resource equity. And where you could meet is in the hard equity space. How are you
Yep.
connecting with these kids? What are you doing there? Why is your program special? And I'm always just amazed that some schools have these absolutely fantastic programs where no one leaves and they win. They do great, better than all the others. Like, why aren't all the coaches knocking on their door? Why isn't the AD saying, listen, go talk to field hockey.
Right.
Don't come to me. Like you've got resources in this building. And I asked those coaches as well. I'm like, does anyone knock on your door? Yeah, not really. I'm like,
Yeah.
would you be open if they would? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I want to help someone out? You know?
Yeah, the isolation is real. I mean, it's interesting. One of my good friends, who was one of my clients, who was a CEO, he said, I had help when I was a mid-level manager, mid-level leader. I had coaches, I had this, and as he moved up the to the mountain, so there was less air up there, and he had more responsibilities, and he had less support. Um, the coaching and working with people and that connection, he said it was almost as if you got to that point where you know what you're doing, so you don't need it anymore. But the reality is, wait a minute, I'm actually overseeing, I have more responsibility, I have more pressure than I ever have had. I have a family I'm trying to navigate, and I think one of the truisms, 100%, you hit on it, is I don't care if you're a head coach in high school, if you're a head coach in D3, D1, if you're a college, whatever it might be, pro, or if you're a CEO, the higher up and the higher up that mountain you go in terms of leadership, the more lonely and isolating, and the isolation creates the loneliness, right? The lack of no, I'm the only one going through this. And then who do I talk to? You don't want to bring it home to your partners. You don't want to bring it home to your kids. You don't want to vent to your assistants too much. You want to lean on them, but you don't. And so you don't want to go to the AD and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling." And so what do? You isolate, and that isolation is incredibly lonely. And I think, I've started 3 or 4 men's groups really to combat that, and it's been transformational. And it's just men because those are the people I really wanted to connect with at that time in my life. Um, it's amazing when a group of head coaches or a group of leaders or even just a group of humans get together. And one of my superpowers is I don't mind being vulnerable, and I can create and set the tone, and I can open up the doors, and then all of a sudden you see people coming in and talking about their fears and their worries and their struggles. And then it's great. Then you really start feeling it's palpable in the room, whether it's in person or on a Zoom call, that we're really getting somewhere because now people don't feel isolated. I thought I was the only one going through this is such a unnecessary and silly thought process, and most leaders have it.
Yeah, and then the emotion down there with fear that when we come from a place of it that is also equally oftentimes destructive is shame. And so
Oh,
many
wow. Yeah.
leaders feel shame that I'm feeling vulnerable, that I'm feeling overwhelmed, that I'm feeling confused, that I'm not coaching or leading the way I want, and I'm not getting the results, and I'm letting down my school and my family and all these things, and just having the ability to talk about that and recognizing too that I'm not the only one and how many athletes feel that same fear and shame. I'm letting down my family, I'm letting down my coach, I'm not doing what I need to do. These are the emotions that I think we really have to address to get the most out of athletes and our leaders.
Oh yeah. Fear and shame. Holy cow. You hit on a big one. That is you know, what is it? Guilt is something I did and shame is something I am. I'm not a good coach. I'm not a good father. I'm not I'm just okay at everything. Um, you know, it's and it's one of the reasons why I love what I'm getting into, and I love what you all are doing, is that is such a dark space for coaches, for players, for leaders, such a dark place for parents to be in, and it's really hard to get out. And as far as I know, I found the best way to get out is to share and to be with other people, and then all of a sudden you see how wow, the weight, you can feel it drop off people. So it's not just sharing ideas of great, how do you build team chemistry? It's how do you navigate a loss? How do you navigate a fear that this is my last year on my contract and my AD hasn't spoken to me and I'm halfway through my season and I don't know what's going on? Talk about heart equity. Holy cow. Any AD who's listening out there, if you have someone on contract or you have someone who is struggling and losing, and don't assume that they are feeling like they're fine. I think coaches notoriously feel like they're not doing fine. And when you lose, it just makes it's like gasoline on that fire. And so I just think anyone who's overseeing coaches or anyone who's seeing, and same with coaches, when one of your players is struggling, don't assume they're okay. That's the time you want to sit down and talk with someone and make sure that they're okay and let them know that you're with them and that you're walking with them and that they're fine and they're secure. Um, that security piece is so important. That's maybe the heart of heart equity is making sure people around you feel not only heard, but secure and loved.
Yeah, and how do you, I mean, this is as a college coach, your livelihood, your career, your family's well-being is dependent on the whims and moods of 18 to 23-year-olds,
Yeah.
That's a really hard place to be, and you're trying to reach them. And then when you're not, and when you're losing, and when you're everything you just said, when you're feeling like, oh my God, this is it. This is my contract year, and we're 5-10, and I'm not getting a new contract here. Then you revert to this coaching out of fear, coaching out of disrespect, yelling, screaming, and you become a person that you don't want to be. I mean, I don't think people get into coaching to be like, God, I hope everyone hates me. I think we want to be loved.
Right.
Um, but when given this choice of this might get me the wins to save my job, and this gets me loved. I mean, it's very natural to revert to just save my job first and I can be loved later.
Right.
Um, and it's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible place to be. I've been there. It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, it is. And I think, Jerry, you hit
Well,
on it. I just think I don't even blame the ADs necessarily. I think ADs are being judged by the wrong optics that are not have nothing to do with leadership. It's not just that they haven't ever coached for the most part, and been in that seat. It's more, they're trying to keep their jobs too, and they have fear. And I think it's a special AD and a special leader that can bring heart equity into any athletic department or even any business for that matter. They're out there though. I mean, it's possible. I mean, there are people doing it in wonderful ways. It takes time. And for me, you always want to work with the AD, and you always want to work with the CEO. The issue is a lot of times they don't have interest, and so you have to go down one level and work with the head coach. And I enjoy that too, or you have to work with someone in the C-suite. And ultimately, the goal is for them for the leader to see that there's some transformation, or for that person that you're working with to say, hey, I think we need to bring Geoff in, or we need to bring John in or Jerry in to work with our department. Then that might happen, but that takes time, and very few leaders at the top are willing to be vulnerable enough to bring someone like us in to help them
yeah,
navigate culture and help them navigate that hard equity. The ones that do, though, man, the ROI, not just financially, but on retention. I mean, retaining talent, people will stay in your business for up to 30% more salary. They'll stay if they feel connected. Beyond 30%, money gets a little bit real. They'll also leave for a pay cut to go to a place that's known for hard equity, that's known for creating purpose, that's known for integrating family and giving you a life and not running you crazy and being connective. So I think, that's the real ROI is also where's our energy and time? How much is that worth? Right. Um,
Geoff, listening to you is amazing to me. How long? I mean, it's like the way you're speaking now, you might have felt that at some point, but you never expressed that early on. Uh, this period of time that you've spent self-examination, doing something that John and I really, really encourage coaches, ADs, and to become more self-aware. Your self-awareness quotient is like off the charts because you're speaking about things that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that back when we first met, you weren't talking about that. So this is in that way, in the way you are now. So there's been a process of education and evolvement. And my point is that we all can get there. We can all get to the place where we can have the conversation that we're having today, even if you're not there yet. That's number one. Number two is I don't know if it's something I disagree with you on, or it's just something you said that I want to take to a different level, which is these powers to be, these CEOs, the people above the ADs or the presidents of the university or the presidents. I'm working with the president and CEO of a professional hockey team right now, and we're having these conversations. And the reason we're having them is because of a point you made, which is very powerful, which is he's willing to be vulnerable.
mm,
He's open. He's receptive. He's basically a human being, not a human doing,
yeah,
you know?
love that.
And so those people that you're saying, they don't, I don't know if you, I don't want to misquote you, but you said those higher ups that they weren't willing to or they didn't want to. Is that,
I think
help
no,
me understand that?
there are some, and those
Yeah.
are the ones. I think there's an I don't know if it's a stigma or if it's an it be I think it's my experience so far. And again, you have much more experience than that, and I love hearing that. My experience is it's harder to start there, although that's the most powerful place to start because leadership cascades. So if you work with the CEO or the manager or the owner of a company or a
Yeah.
professional organization, that cascades down. So
Right.
it's
Right.
really where we should be starting. And so kudos to that person and individual. So no, it's not. There certainly are a lot of people who are willing. And I think that's changing. And I think these conversations we're having are going to change that. For me, it's you got to work at a little bit more to get to that space.
But
That's been my
the
experience.
thing that I've learned, and believe me, this person I'm talking about, I won't go into detail more than that. Uh, he's an extreme example of what you're talking about that isn't like the rest of the mob, you know?
Yeah, love it.
And but that said, uh, those people that seem unreachable and refuse to open up their hearts so we can step in, they go home at night, they have their kids there, they put on their clothes the same way, they take them off the same way, they have all these worries and complaints and fears and everything else, and they're coming totally from a place of fear.
Right.
What they really want is what you're selling. They just don't know it yet. So my assumption is everybody wants what we're talking about. Raise your hand if you don't want respect, if you don't want to feel relevant, important, on and on and on. Write down the whole list. Nobody raises their hand. I don't care. You pick any leader in the world, and I'm going to watch what I say here. Any leader in the world, the highest of the highest, they all want what we're talking about. And I am 100% certain about that.
And I 100% agree with you. I think where I'm coming from is the fear of of a new entrepreneur, new business. You just felt
Maybe
you
the
felt a
fear,
little bit of my fear there, like
yeah,
just
maybe that's what I'm getting at.
you got me,
Yeah,
Jared.
well,
I'm gonna
I'm
work
not,
with
it's
you.
not a getcha
I
moment.
know,
It's an education moment for you as well as me. Because,
right?
to be honest, Jeff, I have those same fears.
Yep,
I really do. The difference is I take a deep breath and I realize, you know what? Are you going to go to bed tonight feeling like you've really done the work that you were put here to do? And if the answer is no, then I can't deal with that.
right.
So I have to at least find a way, and I have found ways to approach the unapproachable people who will not agree with me right away, but eventually they won't be able to say no. And that's my feeling about everybody in the world, the entire world. So
100%.
there is no limit.
Right.
It's
And three or four, yeah,
our
three
own
or four
fear.
people I've worked with at the high that are the highest level have been my favorite. It's been the most impactful. I love it.
Yeah,
And so it
yeah,
takes, I agree with you. It builds you need to build trust, right? And once you
yeah,
have trust with that person, it's been transformational for their
yeah.
company, it's been transformational for them, and I've loved it.
And
Everything.
I think, and this is another thing I'm going to throw out here. This is not part of any script or anything, but I think whoever it was, the powers to be at Ohio State that let you go, what were they fucking, they were freaking crazy. I mean, I'd have to edit that out. But the thing is, I know that you got let go. Let's use the word fire because that's what it was. You got
Absolutely.
fired. Thank God you got fired for your family, for you, for the world. But that person who was ultimately pushed that button was terribly afraid. But that same person was afraid of you because they saw in you some of the things we're seeing in you today that scared the heck out of him or her. And they say, oh my God, Jeff's going to be a problem down the road. He's going to want to hold hands and sit around the fire. And they're all worried about that. Or we're going to lose control. This is out of control. Let's get rid of him.
Uh,
So there's a lot of fear about control. Sports is a business, and it's a business of control. And those who are afraid to lose control, that's who we're talking about. And then this one individual with one of these professional hockey teams that I'm working with, I know that person's not afraid to lose control.
right.
They feel secure within themselves.
Yeah, and I think
And
you brought this up earlier, and I appreciated it. I think there's been a growth curve too. I think the moment that I walked out the door after being fired at Ohio State, was an opportunity for me. It was a catalyzing moment, right? So I think, when you're coaching from fear or leading from fear, you don't behave how you want to behave sometimes because I think John said this, you're coaching to save your job. You're coaching for
yeah,
the wrong reasons from a lack of alignment with your authenticity. So I think, I also have to take ownership for those moments in my life. I have to take ownership for that piece, and that took me a little while to get to, and I still have some moments of edginess with it. That said, taking ownership was very liberating. And so I
hmm,
appreciate your acknowledging, you know, the growth and the learning. And some lessons were harder than others. And you're right. I mean, what comes down to for me, it's what's sacred. Sacred to me is family. It's why we made this move. Sacred to me now becomes taking all of these experiences I've had, lessons that I've learned from both of you and many others, from my own experiences, and serving others, and transforming others, whether that's an AD or a field hockey team or a volleyball club or a CEO for a Fortune 500 company or a mom and pop store. So, like you said, and I loved it, there's not any human being out there that doesn't want this, including everyone on this podcast, that feeling of belonging and connection. And, and we all need help. We all
yeah,
need
that's
guides
right.
and help to get there because it's not necessarily easy. And I love that about you two, that, you not only I've learned a lot from you, but the work you're doing is more needed now than ever. And I'm glad to be a part of that journey, in that group with you because it is more than ever with technology and with what's going on around the world, and whether you're talking about college and sports and NIL and The world is becoming transactional, and those of us who are willing to be vulnerable and be transformational and tap into heart equity and connection and community and belonging, I have to believe that's at least that's the side I want to be on, and that's the side I want to serve.
Well, I
Great.
just got to say, Jeff, it's so amazing to hear, and we would be remiss if we didn't touch on sort of your new position, which you just started a couple days ago with the M1 Volleyball, and it was Director of Leadership, Coaching, and Performance. So here's a youth organization saying we need this, and it's really interesting. I was working with a college team a few weeks back, and their assistant coach runs a very large youth sports club as well. And he kept saying, he said, our what we all the college coaches I talk to say, "Ah, these kids, they just have no leadership. There's no good leaders anymore. There's no good captains or whatever." And he said, man, why isn't our club teaching this to the kids? Like, we're teaching them the sport, but why aren't we investing in our team captains? Why aren't we investing in these young people and adding this to our curriculum? So they started doing it a year ago. And he said, it's been amazing. And the kids who went through it last year are like, oh, I don't want to graduate. Like, what's next? What's 2.0?
Right,
Right.
right.
And so, like, what you're doing with M1 volleyball and what he's doing with his club, I think is so critical that every youth sports club should have a leadership curriculum for their kids who are emerging as leaders, because that is going to help them so much and give college coaches what they're looking for, which is give me some good people who understand everything we're just talking about today.
Absolutely. No, well said. And it's interesting, 100 the last generation or two, they don't need adults. They don't need us for information. They can get on their phone in 12 seconds. They don't need an adult for information or they can get information at the touch of a finger. What they do need is experience and guidance and how to use that information and how to synergize it and how to lead and how to, the emotional intelligence and all those things that you can't get on your phone. So I think that's really well put. And, I'm excited to start that. That's kind of my first gig coming back here. And then, I'm excited about that. And everything you said is spot on. And I think you're starting to see it a little bit more, that leadership and that those other skills and that connectivity and that community, um, is becoming more and more important. And the clubs, and like we've said it over and over, just the leaders who are willing to do that and tap into that, I think they're going to be the ones that are going to really thrive and flourish moving forward, whether it's a club or a team or a business.
Yeah. And it amazes me the high schools that don't have this going right now, or again, these youth clubs that charge thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to play. Like, why not pour in this extra piece to those kids? So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, anything, Jerry, any last questions for Jeff before we let him kind of tell people where they can connect with him and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm curious. Did you like Athens, Ohio?
I did. Athens,
Yeah,
Ohio is a great place. It's a great community.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it
But
was.
you had this dream, you had this dream about it in Athens, right? About forming M1.
No, no, M1, I mean, M1, actually, it's run by my college coach. Like, he was my college coach. It's a big club in Minnesota.
Ah, okay.
And so when he heard I was coming back,
Forming
he
Epic.
got on
Yeah.
me. Yeah, he got a hold of me right away, and he's him and his wife are awesome people. So I'm excited to
Yeah,
work with them. Athens is a great place. It's where, the community embraced us. It's the place our kids loved.
yeah.
Um, it's still 16 hours away from our nearest relative. So, every one of our relatives are back in Minnesota. Our home's Minnesota. And so in the end, that was the North Star for why we decided to get back here.
But it was a community, Athens. I'm getting back to that for a second, but it was a community that you felt loved and you felt connected to, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm just pointing. I happen to be familiar with Athens, Ohio. My wife went to school there, and so I've been there, and And I always felt going to Athens, Ohio, that I felt like I was in this womb of support and people loving and caring, and it was a very different world. It was an oasis
Yep.
from the volatile, uncertain, fearful world. And so you got all that support there, and then you reached out and you went back home, which is
Yep.
where in Minnesota, St. Paul, or
We're in Chisago Lake, so about 40 minutes north of the city. So we're right near Taylor's Falls, right? Bunch of camping, bunch of state parks out here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
uh, I didn't even know where Chisago Lakes was until we
yeah,
started looking at places. So my wife's teaching math at the middle school up here. Um, the kids are off playing pickleball, and we're going golfing later on today, actually.
all the
So yeah,
golfers.
Athens is I remember that now. Yeah, Athens is a very special place. It will always have a place in my heart and my
Mm,
family's heart.
mm.
It's a tremendous community.
And to use that community and all of us in our community, if you don't have a community that's loving and supporting and caring, and you're feeling miserable, that might be one of the reasons. Just like being part of any culture, your community is your culture, your team is your culture in sports. And sports, being the microcosmic classroom that it is, teaches us, boy, how we thrive when our community is supportive and caring and loving. And so you're an example of that on many levels. And yeah, I just would hope that uh, we'll keep the conversation going. I'm very interested in seeing where it all goes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
We talked about fear a lot, and I told my wife last night I'm incredibly excited about this new adventure and building up this business, and
yeah,
I believe in it. I know um, from the work I've already done that there's a lot of awesome things and
yeah,
transformation that happens when you work with
yeah.
companies and groups and on the things you and I we were all talking about today. So
Well,
and also it's
you made me feel really good today, and I think John can agree with that. And to quote a famous poet, one of my favorites, Maya Angelou, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And you made us feel really good today. And when you go out there with this message, I'll tell you one of the things that really have projected John and I to, I don't want to say the forefront, but there aren't not many people doing the work we're doing the way we're
right.
doing it. First, but second is it's just people are buying who we are and
Yeah.
how they feel when they're in our environment. And that's how your business and that's how your work is going to grow as well. The same thing. It's no different. Everyone's craving you and your message.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I needed that.
Yeah.
It's a new adventure, and I'm very excited, and it's been awesome so far. And I appreciate being able to, it allowed me to reconnect with you guys. So
Yeah.
that's a win no matter what. So thank you so much for your kind words, and you too, John, and for having me on this awesome podcast. And anytime you want to talk or get me back on here or collaborate, I am 100% on board with you two
L
gentlemen.
Love it. How
Love
can
it.
people connect with your business? How can they connect with you directly?
Yeah, I have a landing page on my website right now. The website is being redesigned as we speak, but it's epicjourneyleadership.com. Um, you can also just call me 614-352-9138 or email me, which is a fun one here, Carpe, as in Carpe Diem, Carpe Carlston, my last name, at Gmail. So carpecarlston@gmail.com, and I'm on LinkedIn and all the things. So, um,
So why the
um,
carpe?
what's that?
Why the carpe? Like
I
as in
love
carpe diem.
seize the day, carpe diem. I just put Carpe Carlston, and it's a
Seize
little bit of a
Carlston.
mouthful, but it sounded good at the time, so that's what
Seize
I'm going with.
Seize Carlston.
There you go.
Get a hold of this
Carpe,
guy.
yeah, seize Carlston. I like that.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
again, I'd love to talk to anybody, and again, if we don't just to be able to talk about these things. I enjoyed it. It fills my cup, and if I can work with some people, that's even better. So
Love it.
I
Love
love
it.
the work you guys are doing. You inspire me every day. So thank you so much for the time you afforded me today.
Thank you, Jeff, for being on the way of champions. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Ready?
Jerry, that was wonderful. I when I write out questions and stuff, or you write out questions and I sort of format them, I print them out so I have them in front of me and I leave space to take notes, and there's no space left on my paper anymore. That conversation was so incredible.
I know. If my hand weren't hurting today, I would have written more for sure. Too much gardening for me, but uh, yeah, Jeff is the real deal. He's another one of those coaches, and I love the story that he got fired. I met him right after he got fired,
Hmm.
way back many years ago, and he was devastated from being fired, and
Hmm.
it turns out to be a big blessing.
Hmm.
And he actually learned from that experience how to be a better leader, how to be a better father, how to be a better coach. And so there's another example of the things we teach and how much we learn from adversity. Adversity meaning you lose the national championship. What have you learned from that? You get fired from a job. What do you learn from that? Well, he's the perfect example. Here you are writing a whole slew of notes and everything else from someone that got fired. What's wrong with that picture? Nothing. He learned from that. And what he learned is the big picture, which is, when you're coaching, you're either coming from a place of fear or you're coming from a place of love. And
Well,
if you're coming from a place of love, the athletes are going to respond to that. And that's why they'll go the distance. When it's
yeah.
fear, they'll run away. They'll
I know
leave.
you loved his term of heart equity versus
Oh
resource
gosh,
equity.
wasn't that wonderful?
That was wonderful. Yeah, just such a great way to think about it, and how he was talking to athletic directors there at one point and just saying, you need to invest that heart equity in your coaches because they're
Yeah.
not doing fine. Don't assume they're all okay.
Yeah.
That one whose team is struggling means so much to go into their office, knock on the door. How you doing? How can I support you? How can I help
Right.
you?
Right.
Versus them being afraid that the next time they see your face, that's the end of their career.
Oh boy. And this is a big part of the message that we're delivering today through Way of Champions. And I had no idea the conversation was going to go down that road. It was very important, obviously, to him to talk about it in that way. And the effect it has on leadership. We talked about the athletic directors and how there are not many people who are directing programs of coaches, that's their teams, who do not have the hard equity. And, what's it going to take? I mean, I've been at it a long time. It's not there. It's not close to being there. And that gives us business, you and I. But I rather not have business and have the world change. And he's a wonderful example, though, of what we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Well, everyone, again, Jeff's contact, just epicjourneyleadership.com or carpecarlston@gmail.com. Reach out to him. He will return your phone call. He will
Absolutely.
return that email, and
Yeah.
you can get a little piece of Jeff because he's amazing. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to Sprocket Sports for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you to all of our Patreon podcast champions and people who help us put this out every single week now for 400 and something ish weeks. It's been an incredible journey, Jerry, to be able to spread this and have people listen. Please, the way you can support us, become a subscriber. Um, Please share this podcast. If you don't have someone to share this podcast with, I can't imagine how everyone listening isn't sharing this one. So share it with people, share it with fellow coaches, fellow leaders, because this is what it's all about right here. Um, and yeah, just remember that your influence is never neutral. So that one share, that one comment, that one, hey, you should listen to this, it might make a difference, could change someone's life forever. Just like years and years ago, Jerry telling Jeff, you know what? Like, what a gift to get fired. Thanks for listening, everyone.